views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, you're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook because it's time to find out about events and stuff that's going on in the community. It's time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show with Sue Ellen Sanders.
Thanks for joining me today, and I'm really excited to have one of our neighbors here. And David, you truly are a neighbor because you're just right from down the street here on Engle Road. David Vaina is the Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives, which is a mouthful, for the Treasure Coast Food Bank. And of course, everybody has heard of the Treasure Coast Food Bank and some of the different ways that you get food out to the community. In this show today, we're going to talk about some special events that are coming up, some of them right away. We'll talk about some other things that might be coming down the pike a little bit later, some things that you've done already, and really who the Treasure Coast Food Bank helps. David, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Now, to start right off, you know, I know that there is an event that just happened. You had a comedian come in last week, and the money that was going to be raised was going to go to the Treasure Coast Food Bank, but at the last minute, after Hurricane Dorian, your leadership made a change. Tell us about that.
We did. Out Laugh Hunger is an annual comedy show that we host as sort of our kickoff to Hunger Action Month, and it was in Fort Pierce. Actually, I had 3 comedians. They were all great, hysterical, good crowd. The way it works is that we're not able to distribute food outside the 50 states, but we wanted to support our neighbors to the south, and obviously everyone knows that the Bahamas really had the greatest impact was there. So we mobilized very quickly, like we typically do, and decided to allocate the money to the people there.
And you know, the whole idea of that, of making a change, is there's some people that are just so, this is the way it's always been done, and this is what we're always going to do. And to make a change that showed the compassion for, you know, our true neighbors in the Bahamas, because their need was immediate.
Their need was immediate and also just widespread. We're fortunate in the United States, to really have the infrastructure to support disasters. I'm not saying the Bahamas does not, but not to the extent that we're blessed to have here. So it really was an easy decision for us to do.
And Treasure Coast Food Bank is just part of the community partners that get together that support the village. When I say the village, the Treasure Coast, because there are a lot of needs that people might have, sometimes temporarily, sometimes, you know, on a long-term basis. And when it comes to being, what's the expression, food insecure?
Food insecure, food insecurity.
Then the Treasure Coast Food Bank, they're literally the ones to turn to. So let's talk about how that works, and then we'll get into a little bit more detail about how you can be a part of celebrating or commemorating this month, Food Action Month?
Hunger Action Month.
Hunger Action Month is the opposite of food.
Right. So we look at food insecurity, we sort of approach it on 2 different feet. Everybody, not everybody, but most people, I think, are aware of the traditional food banking model. That's where a church or a school or a neighborhood would do a food drive. People, bag cans of food and bring them somewhere, and then the food bank receives them and then distributes them. That's what we've been doing since 1988. Food banks started in the United States in the late 60s, and that was the model for a very long time, and we still continue to do that. Millions and millions of pounds are recovered, safely stored by us, and then distributed through our partner agencies into the neighborhoods where there are high levels of food insecurity, or we do it through other strategies as well. Mobile pantries, that's where we actually bring trucks and set up, and people almost do like a drive-through and go through. So we're mobile, but again, that's the focus there is on distributing food and increasingly healthy food. The second, when I say we walk on 2 feet, the second one is we really look at the root causes of poverty, and poverty is what's critical to understanding food insecurity. Because somebody can be working. I think a lot of people think that people that are food insecure are unemployed or homeless. Well, there's quite a few people that are working or have a full-time working person in the house. So it's poverty. It's having lack of resources, sufficient resources to always provide 3 meals a day for yourself and your family, however that family looks. So what's going to alleviate poverty? So the short-term need is obviously getting them food if they need it. We're not. That's always going to be there. People get divorced. People get unemployed. Don't have savings. That sort of thing. But
health issues that create
health
situation.
Health issue. Yeah, you name it. But we want to look at services that can ultimately position people on pathways towards increased financial stability in their household, and a lot of that's education. That's workshops, that's connecting them with public and private programs that will put a little bit more money in their bank account. That could be something like food stamps or Medicaid, enrolling them in Medicaid and that sort of thing. Or it's linking them with a affordable housing situation, that sort of thing. So it's what we call client services work. And another component of the second strategy that I've been talking about is job training. We have a food bank just a couple of miles from here, an old food bank facility that we owned and we outgrew, unfortunately, but we still owned it. So we looked at the assets that we had and thought, what are we going to do with it? We could sell it, but then we also decided that we could turn this into a production kitchen. So not only can we...
So this is pretty new.
This is fairly new. It's a couple years. Yeah, it's a couple years. Yeah. It's a couple years. But in addition to receiving millions and millions of pounds of particularly produce from Florida farmers that for various reasons can't take it to market, but it's perfectly safe and nutritious, we also hired an executive chef recently, and he does 12-week culinary education courses, 5 days a week. We've got one just starting up September 30th, and that's for targeting unemployed and underemployed people that are either switching careers or they're unemployed or they're just coming out of high school and they don't necessarily want to go to college, and giving them the credentials and the skills to get an entry-level job in a restaurant, in a hotel, an assisted living facility, all the industries that are growing here in our area.
It's true. And what a terrific opportunity for them to get this type of training without having to pay top dollar for it. Is it free?
It's not free for us. There's always a cost for doing that. Fortunately, we've got a wonderful partnership. We've got some grant funding to support it, and we have a wonderful partnership with CareerSource, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes, I am.
That will determine the eligibility of somebody. So if they're, under a certain income or they're unemployed or that sort of thing, then they'll get tuition assistance through CareerSource and able to take our program. But we also offset that a little bit with some grants that we have as well.
That's wonderful. So really, you've taken the food bank model and created a situation where you're looking at the whole person in the future and not just the immediate need for food.
That's exactly right. I mean, food will save somebody's life in an immediate situation, addressing their immediate needs. But if they keep coming back and keep coming back and keep coming back, how is that going to, really empower somebody? How is that really going to change their lives? It'll save a life, but it may not change a life.
Right. And, what's the old adage that you could, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, he is, I'm sure I've, like,
no, that's
the gist of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's right. It's providing
you feed them for a lifetime.
Right. It's providing somebody with the tools and the know-how to.
So you're teaching people to fish.
we're teaching people to fish. I mean, we certainly
What
seafood is on the curriculum, the culinary ed curriculum there.
Whatever it looks like. That's awesome. And it's nice to know that the Treasure Coast Food Bank is always growing and changing and developing with our community. Is this a model that you've developed based on what you've seen nationwide, or are you like a leader?
We've been I'm going to toot our own horn for a second.
I would like you to.
You know, when we go to Feeding America conferences, and Feeding America is our parent organization. It's the national organization of the 200 or so food banks across the country. You know, we're there with the big boys. You know, Houston, Orlando, New York, Chicago.
The Treasure Coast.
There's the Treasure Coast Food Bank. So for about 10 years now, we've been doing, you know, the client services work. So that is, you know, we were a pioneer nationally, and for our little community, you know, we made some noise and very proud to be an innovator, you know, for the fewer resources that in comparison that the bigger cities have. So it is a model that has grown, and we certainly learn from other food banks. But we've been doing this a while, and we continue to grow, and we're going to continue to need to grow. You know, we're going to need to think more dynamically, think more strategically, again, about what's getting down to the real root causes of poverty.
And, you know, having the partnerships in the community is important, especially with organizations like Career Source, who can help to figure out who has the greatest needs and help you target what their needs are beyond the immediate food. But where does most of your funding come from? I mean, first of all, you said traditional food bank is part of it, is one leg, and then you describe the strategic services. But tell us a little bit more about how the food bank works. Can people come and buy the food, or are you more umbrella?
Right. So we don't sell food. People can come to one of our 4 locations and inquire about how to get food. We don't do a lot of direct distribution. What we do is manage a network of about 300 partner agencies across we're in the 3 Treasure Coast counties and also Okeechobee County. That's about the size of Rhode Island when you put all the mileage together.
300. That is a lot of partner agencies.
It is. So we manage that. There's all sorts of rules that each of the partner agencies are going to follow if they're going to get good food from us. And a lot of that's food safety. That's just to protect the citizens and particularly children and seniors are going to be a little bit more vulnerable with these issues. So we manage that. And so we've got the cold storage. We've got freezers. We've got a massive warehouse. We've got a fleet of trucks. We've got all the equipment. The folks that we work with, there are partners in the sense that they're in these neighborhoods. They may be affiliated with the church. They may be affiliated, with some community center where the people that live in those neighborhoods have a rapport. And also they don't have to travel to Fort Pierce.
Right.
So somebody in Hope Sound or Sebastian or Okeechobee, if you're struggling with food insecurity, you don't have you don't have to come to Fort Pierce.
If you're struggling with food insecurity, you may not have any transportation at all. So even if you live 10 minutes away from the food bank, you still may not be able to travel and get that food.
Right. Or if you're and if you're not feeling well and that sort of thing. So that's how we distribute food. And the food comes from, people don't know this, we buy a lot of food. If we're running a child nutrition program, there's certain federal standards we need to follow. We get quite a bit of food from retailers, not surprisingly. They have always been a very generous ally of the food banking world. Farmers, that's another component to this that I wanted to talk about. Farms in Florida, we've got a growing season, especially, when you look at the whole state from the Keys all the way up to the Panhandle. It's a long growing season. And farms can't always bring everything that they grow to market. So we're in a program right now with other food banks around the state where we are fortunate to get that excess produce. It may be a little bit blemished, but it's perfectly safe. It just
Or
for some
maybe just out of season, and so it doesn't taste as sweet or look as pretty.
exactly. It's all about aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's all about aesthetics. Some of it does look beautiful. That's just one reason why maybe somebody couldn't bring it to market or they just couldn't sell it all. But we recover all that, and so that has helped inject millions and millions of pounds of locally grown fruits and vegetables into this community. That's another great source of food. So again, same thing though. We will let our partner agencies know that we've got 20,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. We've got zucchini coming in. We also get some.
Stop for just a minute. 20,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. What does that look like?
Huge. I mean, these massive bins, and that's when we'll get an email, an all staff email, drop everything, come to the warehouse. You got to start sorting.
Yes.
And
because the time is precious.
time is precious. Sweet potatoes have a little longer shelf life. There are some things that we've had, that with a little less shelf life that there's been urgency. But fortunately, food banks are pretty good at working with their partner agencies and getting things out. So we also get some food through the federal government through what's called the TFAP program. So that's not just produce, but that could be dairy, that could be peanut butter, all things that are really in high demand, and we get that out as well.
So some of the things have a short shelf life, or some of the things need to be refrigerated, and so you're talking about infrastructure. You have the trucks, the refrigerated trucks, you have the warehouses, you have the ability to be able to take all this in and then divide it with those 300 community partners and make sure that they have the safe handling ability as well. Because it does no good if you gave them a bunch of fresh, milk and butter and then they didn't have a place to keep it refrigerated.
It's a system. And it's largely run by technology now. It's like any inventory management software. We've got that. We're trained on that, and the agencies, the partner agencies. I mean, as long as they have access to a computer and email, they place the order, and that minimizes food waste as well. So they know what their people need, so they place the order. They either come pick it up or we deliver.
And so the partner agencies have to apply to be a partner agency, I'm assuming.
Correct. It's a contract.
Okay. And then once you've contracted with them, then on a regular basis, they are able to pick up the food that you have available, or is it what they're requesting? Or is it a little of both?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, it's really like going on almost a menu or a list of what's available and placing your order. I mean, there are things that we have, like I was mentioning, the 20,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. That's a little bit of a surprise for people, but it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. So now we have got a greater understanding of how the Treasure Coast Food Bank works. And then we were talking briefly about funding, and some of your funding is through the grace of people and organizations that are local, and some comes from state and federal funds. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It's definitely a healthy mix of grants and a lot of private foundations too. We don't get as much government support, I think, as people think. More of that will come in the form of food as opposed to money. We don't really get a ton of federal dollars. Individuals, they're extremely generous, have been forever. We live in a community where people give what they can.
And one thing that everybody can relate to is the need for food.
They can. I think that people understand that it can happen to anyone and not necessarily the fault of that person. I think there's been a big shift in that where in our culture where people realize that it's not something that anybody chooses. If you've been through a line, or as I have, I volunteered at food distributions, it's not something that people want to be at. It's not exactly the happiest moment in their life. And I think that the compassion of people in our community is evidenced, through the individual donations, which are just so critical to what we do.
So if you are a person that's listening to this and you know a neighbor or a friend or a family member that needs assistance, the best way to get them assistance is in food would be to find one of these 300 partnering institutions, agencies, churches.
Sure. All the partner agencies, some of them are open all the time. Some of them are as open as little as
Wednesday nights or
once a month.
Yeah.
It's what they've got a pantry at their church, and this is what they can do is once a month. So, we always encourage people to, we've got all the partner agencies on our website, so people, if they don't want to come to Fort Pierce, if they live in Indian River or Martin or whatever, they can think locally, if that's what they prefer.
And if agencies are looking to become a partner, then there's an application. Is that on your website?
All on our website, stophunger.org.
Awesome. So very specific there. There are also drives that take place at all different times a year. The one that is most familiar to most of us is the one that takes place around Thanksgiving time, but people aren't specific to the holidays of when they need food.
Exactly. That's a great point. We're getting out of we're technically out of summer, I guess close to getting out of summer. Although Florida,
The weather
that's
doesn't
all
really, yeah.
It's all relative in Florida. But let me give you an example of Thanksgiving. I mean, we are flooded with food drives. I mean, we've got people coming out of the woodworks, constant volunteering. I mean, it's a wonderful time to be in food banking. But you think about Florida and you think about this area, there's some snowbirds. There's quite a few snowbirds. So they leave in May. So we lose that sort of source of food donations. And also you have to remember that kids are out during the summer. So some of them, a good chunk of them are getting breakfast and lunch at school.
Yeah, as much as 80% or more. Some of the schools are at like 89% free and reduced lunch for their kids.
Exactly. So there's a summer feeding program which we spearhead, but not all the kids are going to access that, and their parents or their parent in a lot of cases are going to have to come up with extra money to feed it, especially a teenager. It's a challenge. Mm-hmm. So food needs actually surge in the summer when we lose some of our population, and then also when kids are out. So yes, the answer is food drives. We would like to see them year round, and there are some people that do them year round. Mm-hmm. It just happens to be, I think everyone gets in the holiday spirit and hits the ground running the hardest in November.
The great thing about giving food too is it's something that anyone can do, no matter your income level, because you can grab a few things out of your cupboard and bring them to a food drive, whether you're somebody who has a lot of discretionary money for groceries or not. You can still contribute. You can still feel like you're a part of a food drive. And I think that many people can contribute in that way. Many people might want to contribute and be a volunteer too, and that you have volunteer opportunities as well.
Right. It's a great giving food is a great entry point. You can do it of any age. So we get, elementary school classes do it, and it's really cute. But volunteering is more than that. Mm-hmm. We do at least once a week a mobile distribution, which I was describing, which is where we bring our trucks to a large parking lot, the fairgrounds, and set up shop there. And as many as 200-300 people will be in their cars going through a line to receive food. So we need volunteers for that. We've got a good sized staff, and it's growing and meeting the need. But we can do a lot more when people actually come and our boots on the ground with distributing food. So those opportunities are also on our website. They happen every week. It can get a little bit warm, but we can't stop for the weather.
And so there's an opportunity if you want to be a volunteer, if you want to contribute. There's a lot of food drives. What we have coming up that we're going to be talking about after the commercial break is we're going to be talking about some specific food drives and ways that you can get involved coming up in the next couple months for the Treasure Coast Food Bank. You're listening to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. I'm talking to David Vaina. He is with the Treasure Coast Food Bank, and we've been learning a lot about how the food bank operates. But now, when we come back, we'll learn out how you can be a part of some fun and games while you're still giving to curb hunger. We'll be back in a minute with more.
Now back to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show with Sue Ellen Sanders.
Welcome back. We're talking to David Vaina, and he is with the Treasure Coast Food Bank. And I promised some fun and games and good cheer that's beginning here in September. And we'll talk about a lot of the different events that are going on for the fall for the Treasure Coast Food Bank. Ways that you can contribute and have a great time doing it. So tell me some of the things that are coming up.
Sure. So we're about midway through September. We talked about the comedy show, but still lots of great ways to not only have fun but also learn a little bit about hunger and food insecurity and some of the things that we've been talking about. What I'm particularly excited about is Hops Against Hunger, which is where beer fans can come together at their favorite watering hole.
What's not to like?
Exactly. And if somebody brings a minimum of 5 cans of non-perishable food, they will get a complimentary pint. Or at one bar, and I'll go through the names of them, there'll be a voodoo bucket. So things are actually starting this week, but beginning this Saturday, which would be September.
As we're listening now, today is the
September 21st.
Yes.
Always have that time challenge.
Yeah,
I
know.
apologize on that. So Saturday, so it's going to make its way down, sort of snake its way down south. So Saturday at Waldo's from 1 to 4. That's where the fun can begin. And then moving south, Thursday will be held at the Sailfish Brewery in Fort Pierce. And at Sailfish Brewing Company is where we'll also announce the winner of our Cans for Cause competition. Some people in Fort Pierce or have been to Fort Pierce may have seen that in some storefronts, some interesting structures that the store owners have made using cans.
And also, if you're a Sailfish Brewery fan on Facebook, you've seen them post the photos of some of the structures that have been built with cans.
Exactly. So we'll announce the winner of that competition on Thursday, September 26th at Sailfish Brewing between 7 and 9. And then the next night, we'll wrap up Hops Against Hunger down in Martin County at Conky Joe's. And that'll be between 5 and 9. So donate food and have a beer on our wonderful, generous patrons who are going to provide some really tasty beer for folks. 21 and over, of course.
Yes. Well, but you could be younger to bring in the cans of food. You just won't get the beer.
Right. Exactly. You can come with mom and dad.
So, are there certain types of food that you're looking for to be donated? Is there a need that's greater for some types of food?
We have a most wanted list on our website that has the top 10. The one that, just I think that everybody's got in the house and it's easy to purchase is peanut butter.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a lot of protein. Kids like it. Almost everybody likes peanut butter. So that's an example of beans, canned beans, tuna fish, soups and that sort of thing. And think about if you've also got, since we have, there's a link between hunger and health that I want to talk about just for a second.
Okay.
So people that are experiencing food insecurity have experience at a higher rate heart disease, diabetes, obesity. It seems sort of paradoxical that somebody that's hungry or missing meals would be overweight, but that's not the case.
But the junk food, the high carbohydrate stuff, is the stuff that's the cheapest.
It's the cheapest. It fills people up, and they do, understandably, that's what they indulge in. So when people have stuff at home that may be low sodium, reduced fat, sugar-free, keep the people we serve in mind. If you've got some of those that you're willing to donate, we need those as well. Those are important for us to, again, what you were referring to, the whole situation, the holistic look at food insecurity, is we need to address both the immediate needs of food insecurity, but also the health consequences that come with it too. So look in your cupboard, and refer to our top 10 most wanted lists on our website, and bring some cans up for Hops Against Hunger.
And you don't want to bring something that's in a breakable container, like spaghetti sauce that's in a glass container, because, I don't know about you, but I can hardly get that home from the grocery store without it breaking. So you don't want to have it thrown in. But you need baby food too, but aren't a lot of baby foods still in glass containers?
They are, and what we'll do, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people also know that, or don't know, that the food bank is also a major distributor of diapers and pet food as well.
Oh.
But we do get quite a bit of baby food. But, we'll go through, at our food bank in our warehouse, we actually go through every donated item that comes through. And we do reject some. That's for food safety purposes. There's very strict guidelines. So we'll uncover anything that's a little bit that there's any risk or it violates any kind of guideline and that sort of thing. So you can bring in baby food. That's fine.
And the other types of food that are in cans, you probably want to avoid packaging where things can get easily crumbled or crushed.
Yeah, that saves us some. The thing we hate in the food banking world is, food waste.
Food waste.
So we don't want to, it's hard for us to figure out who gave it, so we generally can't give it back, so it just gets discarded. So yeah, if there's something that's fragile or that could rip open or break or that sort of thing, keep it for your, enjoy it at home.
Yes, yeah. A lot of times we've talked about in past years that at the end of hurricane season that it's a good idea to clear out some of the things that you stored specifically for the hurricane season and maybe give them to the food bank so next year, come hurricane season, come May or June, you can have a fresh supply of your canned goods.
Well, you're a little bit more optimistic than me because I don't know if we're going to be we're not out of
If we're
hurricane
ever.
season. Or until I think it actually runs until November.
Yeah, they keep extending it.
November 30th, and I'm glad you brought that up. We were ready for Dorian. We had 2 staff members that were part of the the local disaster or weather control center. I can't remember the name of the. It's
EOC.
EOC.
Yes, my husband
EOC.
was there too.
Okay, so we had 2 staff members there that stayed overnight, and we're ready to go, and we really do drop everything to get ready for that. We did manage to, we dodged a bullet here regionally, but food banks are increasingly seen as a piece of disaster relief in this country.
And but when there's a disaster, then you're creating a greater need and for more things and for more people. But then you've got that level of a certain amount of the population. It may change who is in need, but it doesn't change that somebody will be in need.
Absolutely. Right, exactly. Somebody's going to be in need, and especially, somebody lives alone, doesn't have a car, or just didn't get out and get everything they need. We're ready for them. I mean, we've have an experience with it. We've also worked with our other food banks around the state when that does happen. The one that happened up in the Panhandle a couple years ago, the food banks that were open that had, excess water, bottled water to give or food, we brought that up there for them. So we work as a network.
And also keeping in mind that if you are able to provide the need for food, then people who are working class people who may not have enough funds for everything can take their paycheck and spend it on something else that they need, like medicine, for example, or or rent.
Right. That's the modern food banking strategy I was talking about, is stabilizing a household financially, so to speak. So there are unfortunately people that do choose between prescriptions and food, or parents or grandparents. That's another thing, is grandparents are increasingly raising children, as I'm sure you've read in the news or
seen
firsthand, and that sort of thing. So they'll skip meals to feed kids. So we don't want anybody to have to make that choice, especially when it's something essential like a prescription drug or rent or mortgage or a car payment or gas in the car, or let's face it, a cell phone. A cell phone is a lifeline now. It's absolutely essential. It's not a luxury anymore.
Because you can sign up for different types of services. You can use it for education, and you can communicate with the world. So many of us don't even have landlines anymore.
Right. So like you said, we want to ultimately shorten the line of the number of people. That's the sort of the visual that we use in the business of, if you think about people lining up for food distribution, we ultimately want to shorten that line by giving people a little bit more money and accessing resources, either that's money or that's education or mentoring or a job training program, whatever, so that they don't necessarily have to turn to food distribution.
Well, the great thing about the Treasure Coast Food Bank is that you have a website that offers a lot of this information online. So easy to access. And, as you said, we depend on our phones because we can use them, the smartphones as our computer as well. And so you can access a lot of this information from signing up as a community agency to receive food, to finding where that information is, the location that's closest to you where someone can receive food, to the other training, to the career training and life training that the Treasure Coast Food Bank is now operational with. All of this is on your website.
That's right. It is a repository of information data. We've got the latest food insecurity data by county, poverty data, children food insecurity. All of that is there for people to educate themselves. But most critically, there's very prominently a get help sign. So somebody may be new to the community, or they may not want to call. That's another thing, and especially younger people, they're used to accessing information in a nonverbal way, electronically.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that option where people can go online, see the get help thing, and then what's brought up, and it's done by geography, so you can see the closest place to get food immediately, when their hours are, when they're going to be offering the food, and that sort of thing. So it's done in a way that's both easy and dignified.
And that's stophunger.org. All that information is there. Also, more information about how to volunteer, or about special events that are coming up, or how to donate to the Treasure Coast Food Bank.
All of those things are on there. Volunteering is we've set up a system where you just sort of sign up, so you're on our list, so you don't have to keep going back, and you'll get our announcements of when we need volunteers, the types of activity, all the age requirements. If you're going to come to the warehouse, that you need to know to wear closed-toe shoes. Not allowed to use your cell phone in the warehouse. You can obviously step out for an emergency and that sort of thing. So all those things are set up through our volunteer portal. Want people to know that we're not just in St. Lucie County. I think a lot of people think because our warehouse is here that we don't cross county lines or anything like that. No. We're in Martin, we're in Indian River, and there are volunteer opportunities in those counties as well. So we want to make sure that people don't have to, drive 30 miles, because there's going to be something in your backyard.
And you're basically looking at Hope Sound all the way north to Sebastian, and then west.
Correct. Yeah, as I said, it's an geographical area the size of Rhode Island. So we spend a lot of money on gas and new tires every year and things like that. But again, we're fortunate to have those resources to be doing it for 30 years now.
What other special events do you have coming up other than the Hops for Hunger? Because I know you have some other things coming up right around the corner as well.
We do. October 25th and October 26th. This is a annual event. Probably my favorite event at the food bank. It's called Pack the House. So it's 24 straight hours of sorting and packing food in our warehouse. What people do is they sign up for 3-hour shifts. You could sign up for multiple ones if you still have the energy to do that. Some of our staff does make it the full 24 hours. I made it 22 one year. And not as young as I used to be, but you'd sign up for a 3-hour shift. You could do it with your office. You could do it with your church group. You could do it with your school. We have, that's sort of typical. As people come as groups, but people can come as individuals as well. We have each shift is catered by a restaurant, so there's great food there for you to snack on. We've got
while you're packing.
Snack
and pack.
We've got a DJ there. We often have things like Zumba, yoga, and that sort of thing to keep people nimble during the night. All sorts of fun things, and the camaraderie and the spirit of it. And when we announce, midday on the 26th, how many thousands of pounds of food that we sorted and packed, and how many people that's going to serve, to me, it's one of the prouder moments I have working at the food bank, and this is truly a community event. Hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. Businesses can sponsor a shift too. That's something that we're looking for. So, if there's somebody out there who wants to sponsor the event, they can. But it's a wonderful event, and again, that's October 25th and 26th. And again, you would sign up through stophunger.org for it.
It would be a neat team building event too for you, like you said, the whole office to come over for a shift. You could
look at it that way, and we're also open the first Saturday of the month for Family Day. So that's often when you do see businesses come or churches come, and they do look at it as a team building exercise. You could also, if you can't make Pack the House, you are free to come the first Saturday of the month for Family Day. It's a similar 2-3 hour shift as well. Our next event, the 26th, so after Pack the House, if anybody's still able to walk, we have a...
Stay awake.
Right. We have a golf tournament at the Dolphin Bar and Shrimp House down in Martin County. That's going to be at the shores of the North River Club. That's a fun event for the golfers. Good way to kick into the season.
So I'm sure you're looking for tee and green sponsors as well as golfers.
Exactly. And that information is also on our website where you can register and learn all about that event as well. Moving ahead a little bit as the weather starts to cool down and the farmers have a little bit more time to grow some food for us is November 9th is our fall harvest farm to table dinner at Shacked Groves in Vero Beach, and then we'll also have one in the spring in Martin County. But that's a really a way to celebrate everything that we grow here, and also it reinforces the connection that food banks have with local agriculture as well, and the produce that we receive through farmers, and our commitment to distributing more healthy food. And again, that's November 9th.
And that's a sit-down dinner, or
it is. It's a very it's an elegant event.
Mm-hmm.
It's a more formal event than say Hops Against Hunger, but so yeah, you'll get to try. I mean, we'll have the menu up on our website pretty soon, but it's a 4 or 5 course meal.
Wow, yeah, and then of course you get into the holidays where the food drives are very prevalent.
Food drives we will do in November. We haven't announced the date yet. That's when people can donate a turkey. So there's a day where we'll be at dozens of locations on the Treasure Coast and in Okeechobee County to collect frozen turkeys that we'll turn around and distribute pretty quickly just in time for Thanksgiving. It's usually the Saturday before Thanksgiving. I imagine it's the same. So yeah, that's something to save the date for is and it's great because the retailers typically put some we'll discount turkeys on those days. So we'll get people donating 3 or 4 turkeys, and then again we make it easy by fanning out throughout the community for people just to bring the turkeys to us.
And in addition to your website, I know you have a Facebook page too, with a lot of the special events that are posted on your Facebook friends page. So if you like the Treasure Coast Food Bank's Facebook page, you'll probably get notice of a lot of these different things.
Facebook is where I imagine, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but I imagine we have just as many people going to our Facebook page as we do to our website. It's just the way the world is right now. And it's a very, very active page. Instagram as well.
It's quick and easy to look at, so the social media can give you a glimpse of what you need to know.
Right, and you get those reminders. And we do, through our volunteer portal as well, if you do the website, we do send reminders as well. But yeah, Facebook is a great way. It's a nice visual experience. All our events on there. You'll get to see what our staff looks like from time to time. We wore orange on September 12th and posted a staff picture, so sometimes people can see who we are.
Gator fans. No.
Gators and some Hurricane fans too, I think. Yeah.
Or Tennessee.
Yeah,
or
Tennessee, or I don't know, Dolphin fans, if there are any of those left at this point.
Diehards.
Diehards, yeah. So Instagram and Facebook, those are major pathways to people learning about the food bank events, and also mobile distributions and things like that. And people will message us all the time. Hey, I'm new to the community. How do I get food? I just lost my job, and that sort of thing. It's an underrated communication tool for us. Is we have people messaging us all the time through Facebook.
Mm. And it's a good way to reach out, and where you feel like you're reaching out personally, but it's something that's easily accessible to people.
Again, and it goes back to phone too.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look and see where people are, how they're accessing information, and try to make it just as easy as we want people to not be intimidated by accessing food, especially it's the first time. So we want to make it quick.
So if you had to walk away from this show leaving maybe 5 tidbits of important information that you want the listeners to know about and to be able to share with their friends and neighbors, what would they be?
What I would personally want to say is that, I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and food banks now we know when to partner with somebody who is an expert in something that we just can never be a partner with. We wouldn't get into the radio business of looking around and seeing all this equipment. Career Source, they're experts with, with job placement and matching people, with their specific needs. But we are increasingly complex in what we do. Not complicated, but complex, because hunger and poverty are complex issues. Food banks are so far from being static organizations, and we're constantly thinking about what is the most effective and efficient way. We know we have limited resources. So we're constantly evolving. We're always strategizing. We're always looking at all the different angles of the best way to meet the need. That's through community partnerships. That's exploring new funding opportunities. That's hiring people with different skill sets. Executive chef I said that we hired. Who would have thought 10 years ago that a food bank would have an executive chef on the payroll? Well, we do. And it's putting people through, he's leading people through this job training program. So this month is, yes, there are ways to have fun and give back at the same time, and that's a beautiful opportunity. But I want people to just be a little reflective and thoughtful and not just assume, make assumptions about who's food insecure. It's different than what people think. The profile of food insecurity, I think, is different from what people think. It's older, unfortunately. Breaks my heart when we serve homeless veterans. To me, that's, people that serve their country, and this is where they are. So there's a number of homeless veterans that we serve. There are people out there that for no fault of their own have been wonderful human beings, have served their countries. They've worked hard. They, for whatever reason, they're in need of food assistance or assistance through a case manager, whatever it is. So I want people to think differently about what hunger looks like and what the solutions are to it as well.
We talked a little bit about how some people are temporarily food insecure, and it could be something as minor as a car accident that takes your car out of commission and you can't work, or something as major as a chronic illness that someone in your life, all of a sudden they have hospital bills and they have doctor bills and they have they're not able to work, and so your whole life goes topsy-turvy, and it can happen in the space of 1 day or 1 week.
Right, or 2 new grandchildren come live with you. It's unpredictable. And the other thing I want to say is that most people are going to get back on their feet. Most people are not going to be in this situation. They're going to work through it. They just need a little bit of help.
So it's a temporary thing. And we all, again, it takes a village. We all have to help. So David Vaina has been my guest. He is Senior Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Treasure Coast Food Bank. And all of the information that you need to know is on their website at stophunger.org. You've been listening to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. I'm here every Saturday at 1 p.m. and every Sunday at 11 a.m. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week with more.
Archives of the Sue Ellen Sanders Show can be found on YouTube. Go to YouTube and look for WPSL TV, or better yet, go to www.wpsltv.com. That will take you to our YouTube presence, where you can look for archives of a lot of our programming, including the Sue Ellen Sanders Show.